Hey there, so this video is all about fall leaves and all the things that you'll be missing out on if we just rake them up and throw them away. I always talk about how fall is a great time for mushrooms and insects because the leaves fall off the trees and they start to decay and they produce nutrients for the soil, which is really good for mushrooms, and also they make really great habitats for insects. But in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Different types of insects and fungus that like to live on fallen leaves and make their habitats there. So if you watched my videos before, you know that I'm not really much of a plant person, but studying insects and fungus and the things that live on them, on the plants, is a good motivation for me to learn more about plants. So I'm also going to be talking about some identification of what trees these leaves come from. Which, since I said I'm not much of a plant person, I hope it's accurate to the best of my ability. So the first thing we're going to talk about is we got these two maple leaves. Maple leaves always turn a nice pretty yellow during the fall. And then they fall off of the trees. I'm going to show it like this. So maple leaves make a really good food source for insects. There's a lot of generalist species that feed on them. Species that can feed on maple leaves and also a bunch of different types of stuff. There's a couple of specialist species that I'm not really familiar with, but when I think of maple trees, I think of generalist species. This one is growing a fungus on it called a tar spot, or Rhytisma erinacei. These are some small black spots that are growing on the leaves, and they're slightly elevating off the leaves. I don't know if it can fully pick up, but this is an ascomycete fungus. And there's a close relative, which is the American tar spot, the Rhytisma americanus, which forms bigger spots. So instead of a bunch of tiny ones, there'll be large spots all around, and they have really cool maze-like structures on them. But this isn't that. This is just the boring tar spot. And then I forgot to show at the beginning, but this is a whole array of what we have today. So, we're going over all these different things. Moving on to the next one. We have this basswood leaf. In other parts of the world, I think, and here we call them basswood, but in other parts of the world, they're called linden trees, I think, which is important because this next thing that I'm showing off is called the linden wart gall midge. It's also called Contarinia verrucicola. So this is a small midge. A midge is a type of fly. It's like very small. And there's a certain family of them that forms galls on leaves. And this is the one that forms it on basswood. When they're fresh, they look like more rounded things, but you can see there's little holes in them. That's where the insects emerge as adults. So the way that midges work is that the mother will lay eggs on the leaf, and there's like a certain way that it cuts through the leaf or something, or a certain chemical that she puts in there. I'm not really familiar with how it works, but it causes like a chemical reaction in there for the leaf to basically form like a big huge scar that forms around the eggs, and it provides protection for the eggs as they hatch and they become larvae. It's a source of protection from the elements and a source of food for them. And then eventually they're pupate and emerge as adults, which this one's already did. So this is a linden wart gall midge. Up next, we have a showcase of these elm leaves. So elm leaves are like round leaves that are kind of serrated on the edges. We've got these 5 leaves that have a disease called the black spot of elm, or Stegophora ulmea. So in the earlier stages, it looks kind of like this. There's a bunch of tiny black dots that form on it. And then you can see this one also has some of the older stages on it too. But these ones also have it. The dots kind of form like a larger diameter in there. And, you know, sometimes they could eat through the entire leaf. Like, I think this one has some holes in it because of the fungus that's growing on it. And this is a plant pathogen. So, this probably started growing on these leaves while they were still attached to the tree. It feeds on the living elm trees. And it causes damage to them. It's not a big deal. It causes damage, but it doesn't kill the tree. It's kind of like when humans get a cold, that kind of thing. So it's not that big of a deal. But then the leaves fall off in the winter and they still carry the spores on them. These are also ascomycete fungi. So it's carries the spores as it falls. And then the spores spread along the forest floor with the rain and the moisture and everything. So that's how its life cycle works. So there's a black spot of elm showcased on the elm leaf. Up next, we have this hickory leaf. So it's kind of narrow at the base, and it gets wider towards the top. I don't know if I could open it all the way to show. But yeah, it's a hickory leaf. It's got some more of these galls on it. But instead of belonging to a midge, this belongs to a member of the genus Phylloxera, which is a type of, I think they call it a mite, but it's a type of insect that's closely related to aphids. So they're just very tiny little insects that live in groups inside of these things. These ones are empty at the moment. Here's one that I opened up to show what's inside. Hopefully I can get a focused image of it. But yeah, it's just an empty shell. And the members of the genus Phylloxera are known for their colonization of grape leaves, in which case they do cause damage to the plant. And, you know, they inhibit the growth of the leaves. But this hickory leaf seemed to be doing fine. It didn't really mess with the structure of it at all. So that's Phylloxera. Up next, we're moving up here. We have these 3 hackberry leaves. These hackberry leaves are kind of round and wide, but they're asymmetrical. So one side is like lower than the other. One side is wider than the other. It's got a nice pointy tip. The 2 insects that I think hackberry is most known for is the hackberry emperor butterfly, which the larvae feed on its leaves. And then also there's the hackberry gall psyllid. So a psyllid is just a very small type of insect. They call them like a leaf louse, I think. But they're very small. They're not like a fly or an aphid or anything. They're their own group. And they live in these little galls that they formed. They're nice, round, with like a more pointy tip. They also call them the hackberry nipple galls. So there's a distinct feature of them. And then here's another hackberry leaf that I found. It's a very nice yellow color, but it looks like it also has some type of fungus growing on it. I don't know what that is, but yeah, that's going to help to decompose it, to have more nutrients on the forest floor for other plants and fungus and everything like that. Next up, we're moving on to a different type of tree, which is the beech tree. This is the American beech. The leaves kind of grow in groups like this. This is them on the branch. And they're kind of just a round, oval-like leaf. Nothing too special about them. But I did find some galls on them. This one is just a lone gall. And you can see on the other side, yeah, there's a small hole. That's where the insect came out. So this could be a type of midge, type of mite, you know, those aphid-like things like Phylloxera, or, you know, the psyllids from the hackberry leaf. I'm not exactly sure what this would be. But then over here, you go to these, some more American beech leaves. And they have these kind of oval-shaped galls on them with pointy ends. And you can see the holes on the ends where the animal busted out. The interesting thing about this is that this description seems a lot like a type of midge that lives on beech trees called Mikiola fagi. It's a type of midge that has a host on beech trees from Europe and Asia. We don't really have those here in North America. So I don't know what this is. It could either be that this is an invasive species. We'll see if a couple years down the line, scientists discover that Mikiola fagi has come to the United States as an invasive species. And then we'll have this video already on the internet, timestamped that I knew that before them. Or it could be that I misidentified what kind of a tree this is. And that's the type of midge that lives on a different type of tree that is native to America. So I'm not exactly sure, but we'll find out. Alright, and then I saved the best for last. Everything over here on the bottom and up on the right, these are all oak leaves. Oak leaves are really cool because I've been talking about all these galls from midges or mites or psyllids. But there are also plenty of wasps that form galls. And I think almost all of them form them on oak leaves. So they're pretty easy to find galls that are on oak leaves. The thing about the gall-forming wasps, they all belong to the same family called Cynipidae. And a lot of them reproduce through parthenogenesis. So they're all females and they just lay eggs, and all the offspring are females, and they continue their life cycle like that. Some of them have like a two-phased life cycle where they emerge in the winter. The females lay eggs on their own through parthenogenesis. But when they do that, only a male comes out. So if they have an unfertilized egg, it's always going to be a male. So their first generation in the spring is all males, and then they go and they mate with females. And then once they produce a fertilized egg using a male and a female, then their offspring will be females. And those females are going to be the ones that survive over the next winter to lay eggs for the next generation. So some of these Cynipidae wasps do that, but some of them just reproduce slowly through parthenogenesis. And none of them sting, so that's a good thing. The first one over here is the jumping oak gall wasp. It's Neuroteras saltatorius. They look like these little dots on the leaves. They're very small. You can see some of them are still active. This one they grow on the underside. This is what the top part of the leaf looks like. It has indentations from the actual galls that are growing on them. But then you can see the little brown things that are on them. And then on some of these leaves, those brown things aren't there. Hang on. Let me find those little brown things aren't there. They're just little holes where the brown things used to be. This one you can see it better. This one has some of them where the brown things are still there, and some of them are just little holes. So once these get mature enough, the galls break off and they go onto the ground. And then the larva that's growing inside of them wiggles around very vigorously, and it causes the gall to move up and down, which is where they get their name, the jumping oak gall wasp. And that way they can bury themselves deeper within the leaf litter. Imagine one of these little galls was on the ground, you would never see it. But if it was buried even deeper within the litter, there's pretty much no chance you would find it. So that's their defense mechanism. So all of these oak leaves have the jumping oak gall wasp living on them, or the evidence of them used to be there. Alright. The next one is the Phylloteras rubinum, which is, it's right here. So these are a couple of oak leaves that have them. The other one was very prolific over here, but here you just see one at a time. So then there's one here, and then a little one here, and then another one here. They just look like these small little balls that are growing on the oak leaves. There's a lot of species in the genus Phylloteras, but the one that distinguishes the Phylloteras rubinum from the other ones is that the galls are these little round balls. In the other species, it looks kind of cup-shaped or disc-shaped or something. And you can see that it varies in color a little bit. Oh, this one might actually not be in the same species. This might be a different species of Phylloteras because it doesn't have that round shape. But there you can see the difference. But yes, these three, you can see they vary in color a little bit from white to greenish to pinkish red. So there's Phylloteras rubinum. And then from here we've always seen the different galls that grow on the leaves, on the, the fleshy part of the leaf. It just forms these little dots. I'll show some more. All these ones have that one thing in common. But over here, we see what happens when the wasp forms a gall right on the central vein, where there's a lot of nutrients to feed the gall. So it grew this nice big thing. This is called the spongy oak gall wasp, or the Amphibolips confluenta. So yeah, this is a very big one. It provides a lot of protection. You can throw it all around and it won't get hurt. But it does look very conspicuous in the forest. So I'm just going to open this up and you can see what's inside, why they call it the spongy oak gall wasp. So this is what it looks inside. It has this nice tough outer shell, but on the inside it has these spongy-like fibers that I guess act as shock absorption if the thing falls on the ground. And then right in the center there's this little nugget with another hard shell where the larva lives in. This one looks pretty dark. It's usually like the same color as the outer shell, so I wonder if this one died in there and then got rotten or something. But that's the spongy oak gall wasp. Over here is another gall that grows out of the vein. It's not quite as big as impressive as the spongy oak gall wasp, but it's still bigger than the other ones that grow out of the fleshy part of the leaf. This is the hedgehog gall wasp, or Acraspis erinacei, and it looks like just a little hedgehog that's sitting on top of the leaf with all the spines and stuff. So these ones have turned brown. All the galls I've showed you have turned brown, because since they are part of the leaf, they're made out of leaf tissue, they change colors at the same time as the leaf. So when these all first started, they were all green, same color as the leaf, but as the leaf died, they turned brown. So, yeah, there's the hedgehog gall wasp. And then, I've shown you what it's like for galls that grow out of this fleshy part of the leaf that look kind of small and puny. And then the ones that grow out of the central vein that are bigger and more complex. This is what happens when the wasp lays her egg on the stem of the plant. This is the bullet gall wasp, which also grows on oak trees, but it grows on the stems, on the branches, I should say. This is one that I think fell off of whatever its host plant was, but it's the same thing as these two. And you can see it's made out of the woody part, so it forms this nice strong gall that no one's going to get into. I think that if someone really wanted to eat this wasp, it would take more effort. It would burn more calories to break into this gall than it would benefit them from eating the wasp. But yeah, these are the bullet gall wasp. I bet if you loaded an airsoft gun with these things, it would hurt a lot. So I guess that's why they call it a bullet gall wasp. But here's one. I thought it was a perfect example because you could see the part of the plant that it's growing out of, and you could clearly tell that it's an oak plant because of the leaves. And you can see that it's done its job. It's completed its life cycle and it's broken out of this chamber here. If I could get a good shot of it. This is the inside of the gall, so you can see it has this big, thick, woody layer to protect the wasp. And inside there's a tiny little capsule, similar to the one we saw in the spongy oak gall wasp that the larvae lived in. So you can see that it cracked out of its little capsule and then it burrowed its way out of the gall and became an adult. So there's the bullet gall wasp. And then that concludes all the insect life that are showcased on these leaves. But over here, we have some more oak leaves with some white spots on them. This is a fungus. This is a disease called anthracnose that affects a lot of different plants, and it is caused by a lot of different fungus, but it causes these white circles to appear with the brown outer edges, and then these circles can eventually grow and cause destruction to the leaf. And this one is similar to the black spot of elm over here in that it causes disease in the living trees. So this fungus was likely growing on these leaves before they even fell onto the ground. And they were causing disease. They cause damage to the tissue, just like the black spot of elm, but they don't really have a serious impact on the survival of the tree. So once again, it's like humans getting the common cold, and similar to the black spot of elm. So that's anthracnose here. And then that's all the specific things that I know about on these leaves, but here are some honorable mentions here. We got plenty of leaves with different fungal and insect activities. Over here is this some kind of oak leaf. You can see it's got some type of fungus growing on it. I don't know what, but it's also an example of the amazing habitat that leaves make for insects. Over here you see this little white thing. I don't know if I could get too focused on it, but it looks like a pupa of an insect that was growing on here. And right on the end here, I don't know if I could get a good enough image, but there's a tiny little hole right on top where you can see that the insect has emerged out and become an adult and finished its life cycle. So there's one thing that you missed out on when you rake up the leaves and throw them away, is the pupae that are living there. This one already emerged, but there's a lot of different types of moths and other insects that make their pupae on leaves, and that's how they survive over winter, is inside of their cocoon, which is often built among the leaf litter. So there's another example of the habitat that leaves make for insects. Up next, just some more oak leaves. This one has some black spots that are probably caused by a fungus, some type of mold or something. And over here, I believe this is a different type of oak leaf, even though it looks different from the other ones, but I think it's still an oak leaf. This one has stuff that looks kind of similar to the black spot of elm. I'll zoom in on here, just a little bit lighter. And then here's a reminder of what the black spot of elm looks like. I think it looks pretty similar, but the black spot of elm only grows on elm trees, so this has got to be something different. I'm not exactly sure. And then over here, it's another leaf. You can see there's some fungal activity going on, just like there will be with pretty much any leaf that you pick up off the ground. There will be some kind of fungal activity, but there's also, it looks like some very small creature was living in here and eating off all the fleshy tissue and leaving this intricate network of tiny little veins. So I thought that was cool, so I collected it. And then here's a couple of leaves that I don't know which tree they come from, but they've definitely got some fungal activity going on there. And then there's another one with fungal activity. It looks like maybe a little egg sac of something. I'm not sure what, but that's another role that these fallen leaves play. They make a good habitat for eggs, insect eggs, that will survive over winter and hatch out. You know, different insects have different stages of their life cycle that survive over winter. So, you know, some of them only survive as eggs, so that's how the whole species gets to survive, through these fallen leaves which contain their eggs. And then the last thing is these two oak leaves that have some type of gall on them. This one has some growing right along the central vein, but not quite out of it. And then this one is growing more out of the fleshy part. And yeah, they don't really have many distinguishing features. I couldn't figure out what they were. But I think since they're oak leaves, it's safe to assume that they come from some kind of wasp, like we've seen with all these other oak leaves. If it was a different type of tree, I might say that it's a midge or a mite. but there's another type of oak gall wasp. Let me open it up so we can see what's inside. Alright, this one over here that was growing on the central vein just looks like an empty shell. Not much distinguishing features. And this one over here I couldn't get open. It was too hard. There's something very hard on the outer surface of it. But you can see it's got tiny little holes, so whatever was in there already emerged. So there's our honorable mentions of things that I couldn't quite identify. And then once again, here's our whole array of all the fall leaves that we have. So those are some fun analysis of the ways in which leaves make a really good habitat for insects and fungus. I bet that you've walked past a lot of these things and never even knew about it. In order to get this whole table of stuff, I was pretty much just walking for like 15 minutes and picking up any leaf that looked like it had something interesting on it to me. So it's just a really cool thing to notice. I didn't even, a lot of my videos you see me, I'm, climbing up stuff. I'm turning over logs, chasing after frogs, but all I did was walk along a path, and I just picked up leaves along the way that had cool stuff on them. So anyone can study these fall leaves. This stuff is everywhere right under our noses. A lot of people think that once the winter comes, there's not much wildlife to see. But it snowed like over the past week, and we still all got all this cool stuff around. So next time you go out and you see the fallen leaves, maybe try and pay attention and see if you could find any of these things that you learned about today and identify them. Or maybe you'll find something new that no one has ever discovered before. So, this is a bit of a different video for me, entirely indoors, but I hope you enjoy exploring nature in the future.